what's a preferred future? The best way I know to tell you what a preferred future is to show you one. So here's a preferred future I found recently when I was looking for signals related to drones, of all things. And you can see a photo of it here. The rideshare company Uber recently did a very interesting advertising campaign where they flew messages to drivers on drones. They drove the drones into parts of the city where traffic was really bad during rush hour. This was in Mexico City. And in a way, they were trying to reach drivers at their moment of peak frustration with messaging that said in Spanish, "If we all carpooled." And it said the city was made for us, not for 5.5 million cars. And this is both an advertising message, but also an illustration or an expression of a preferred future. Uber was presenting drivers with an alternative reality, if you will. A future in which, instead of having 5.5 million cars on the road, maybe there would only be 1 million cars on the road, and we would all get places faster and have more time for all the things we love to do in our favorite city and spend less time behind a wheel. This is a vision that they hope will inspire people to use their new rideshare or carpooling app. So it's part of their business strategy. But it's also just a way to help people unstick their minds about the world they live in, to say, we don't have to drive the same way we've always driven. We don't have to organize our routines and habits the way we always have. And that's what a preferred future really is. It's saying, here's a vision of something that's very different from the way things are today. And I believe it's a better vision. This would be a better version of reality. Let me share with you the preferred future that I've been working towards for probably a decade now, to give you another illustration of how you might start to express an alternative vision of reality. So my preferred future is that I would like to see a game designer nominated for a Nobel Prize by the year 2023. And this is a preferred future I first shared in the year 2008. So back then, 2023 seemed really far away. I was like, oh, 15 years, that's plenty of time to achieve this future. Now that it's 2019, there's a little more urgency behind this vision, but we're still working towards it. And what does that vision mean to me? To me, it's a preferred future to imagine a world where a game designer is receiving a Nobel Prize nomination, because it means a few things. It means that games are recognized as a force for good in the world. It means that developers are working on games that have global impact in a positive way that might be measured. Positive impacts on mental health, or on empathy, or on reducing social conflict, or increasing global well-being. I like to imagine a world in which there are enough game designers working towards these kinds of positive goals, and there are enough organizations measuring their positive impact, that it would be totally plausible for a game designer to get a Nobel Prize. That people would say, game designers have done more to improve humanity's well-being than anyone else in the past year. So this is an example of a preferred future because, first of all, it describes what I want the future to be, not necessarily what I think the future will be. And this is an important distinction between making a prediction for the future or even making a forecast. So a forecast for the future, we try to describe something that seems plausible, we think it's realistic, that it might actually come to pass. A preferred future doesn't even have to be totally plausible yet. If it accurately describes a world you want to make and it can serve as that kind of guiding star for you, that is a good preferred future. And then our job is just to make it increasingly plausible and increasingly believable year by year. When I first started talking about Nobel Prize for game developers, people would laugh every time I said it. It seemed ludicrous. People described it as an absurd idea. Now there are tens of thousands of game developers working on games for peace and games for change and games for health, and there has been so much movement and progression towards that goal that and now it seems a little more plausible, but it might take time. It might take a decade for a preferred future to go from seeming like a fantastic vision to seeming plausible. Let me give you a few more examples of preferred futures. These aren't necessarily my preferred futures, but they are preferred futures held by futurists I know. And let's take a look at them and see what they might represent. Here's one. Half of all meat consumed globally by the year 2037 will be lab grown. So lab grown meat, as you may know, is meat that is grown not from a living animal, but from stem cells that are taken from a living animal, and then they can create real meat without a creature having to be born and live and die. So it's meat taken out of the animal cycle and grown in a laboratory instead. Now, why might this be somebody's preferred future? Well, there could be lots of reasons. The environmental impacts of growing meat are much lower in a lab than when you have to raise an animal and have massive farming infrastructure. The climate change impacts are reduced. It's less expensive. It's more sustainable for emerging economies to be able to afford the nutrition that they need. So there might be an economic factor. Maybe you feel that it's morally or ethically wrong to kill animals for meat when there might be an alternative that is equally nutritious. So there are lots of reasons why this might be someone's preferred future. And it's a good preferred future because it's clear as a goal. Half of all meat consumed will be lab grown. It puts a stake in the ground and it gives us something concrete to aim for. Here's another preferred future. By 2024, more virtual reality pain relief prescriptions are written than opiate prescriptions. So this has to do with the idea of using virtual reality to manage acute or chronic pain. There's a huge amount of research now showing that virtual reality can reduce or eliminate opiate prescriptions in many patients. Why might this be somebody's preferred future? Well, there are certainly many doctors who would like to see fewer side effects from opiate drugs. There are lots of physical and mental side effects from taking heavy pain prescriptions. So if you can reduce the side effects, people can get better faster. There's certainly a risk of addiction with certain pain prescriptions, and maybe virtual reality will prove less addictive than pain prescriptions. We don't know that yet, but it's a hypothesis that this future could test. And it might be more affordable even to have somebody use VR. People might be able to afford their health care and engage with it more proactively than taking a medical prescription. One more preferred future. In the year 2021, a new refugee convention is ratified by 150 different state parties. It replaces the 1951 Refugee Convention, providing protection to climate change refugees for the first time. So this is a preferred future that describes a particular policy that it would like to see enacted. It's a global treaty or convention that would change how people are treated around the world. Currently, climate change is not an eligible status for refugee status. You can't claim refugee status if you are fleeing your homeland because of conflict or environmental impact from climate change. So there's no recourse to move to a new country on those grounds. So if this is your preferred future, this is a way of saying we need to formalize and respond to this growing crisis that people are fleeing due to climate change. We need to recognize it and make it safer and easier for people to find safer ground. So those are all examples of preferred futures, and in the next video, we'll kind of break down the key pieces of a preferred future that help make your preferred future more inspiring, more provocative and conversation provoking, and more actionable for others.